Good evening. This is Denise Bruma coming to you with a vlog entitled A Blueprint to Oppression in the year 2022. It's a revelation of how criminals are using extraordinary prosecution methods which lead to extraordinary events which result in national and international and human rights violations. Today, I would like to focus on making you all aware of how oppression is on the rise as a result of the application of extraordinary prosecution measures. Why? Because the extraordinary measures which were used result in extraordinary events and violations of many of our rights on many levels for all who are being involved. By sharing this story, which is just a tip of the iceberg, I hope to give others insight into how oppression nowadays is very much alive and has no intention to die out and uses these methods to find acceptance among others in order to spread itself even more forcefully. The prosecution methods which were applied on myself and my housemates, being my mother and two dogs, have had a tremendous impact on our lives and have reduced the quality of our lives drastically. Also, and not in the least part, have they led to the violation of our human rights. It is exactly these events which have created a blueprint, if you will, of modern day oppression. These methods have the potential to become the norm if they remain accepted. The goal of this post is to inform others, make them aware of what is happening. The things which are going on here are absolutely outrageous. This is not how you treat people. We cannot and should not allow prosecution methods like these to expand uncontrolled. These events have to come out in the open to prevent oppression to increase its hold on our society because of the ramifications it has on each and every one of us. So, what's going on? I returned to the Netherlands in December 2019 after 5 years of working and living in Suriname in South America. I was looking for a house to rent and found one in August 2020 in a street named Zwarte Kolk in a town, Wapenveld, in the Netherlands. The first events are about slander and data fraud. Before returning to the Netherlands, I noticed I was being treated or approached as a criminal and that something wasn't right. I had started to investigate what was going on, so it all started with ascertaining that slander was being applied. But by whom and what was it about? That I didn't know. I noticed slander predominantly by unknown people's approach. They would tell me things I just did not understand, like how I should have paid my tax and that kind of stuff. By not being able to find a house, well, I had enough funds to find a rental house, to pay for a rental house. No one wanted to rent us a house. Even now that we are applying for another house, which is over a year now, and we're just not getting through. Like they don't want us to move from here. They want to keep us in this situation while the negativity continues and nothing is being done. Another indicator was not being able to find work, even at the organizations where I previously, well, in the past, I used to work where I used to work. Even there, it was not possible to find work. So I was noticing a lot of manipulations going on to prevent me from earning my way, or at least to make it quite difficult by throwing all kinds of obstacles in my path. I also found out that third parties had access to my data, which was stored in the data banks of different organizations. They can access it, alter it, and falsify it without my permission, of course. Our data is being shared with fourth, fifth, sixth, and whatever so on parties. This also happens without my consent. You should have insight in what data of yours is stored in which organization's data bank. And you should also know whether it's correct or not. Questions this whole thing triggered in me are when you undermine someone with an entire group by sending them undermining images and texts with the objective to destroy someone's personality or to destabilize them mentally. How are you feeling? Does this make you feel happy? Does this make you feel like the man or the woman? How does that make you feel while you're hiding behind this group targeting individuals? So I'm very curious about that. I'm also curious, next to how does it make you feel? Did you manage to fulfill? Did you fulfill your objective? Did you reach your objective? Did you succeed, in other words? The second event is stalking. Stalking began. First, it was only when I went out with my dogs. I have two dogs. This escalated to being pursued each and every time I left the house. I would be stalked by people on foot, on the bike, or while driving in the car, always accompanied by a mobile phone. People would either be observing where I went, what I was doing, or follow me around. It didn't matter whether I was driving in my car 50 kilometers an hour or 100 or 120. The stalking process consisted of following, observing, and sometimes filming me with their mobile phone and messaging their co-criminals where I was or what I was doing or who I was stalking with. This always happened in this place where Appenfeld, but I also observed it happening in other locations, other places where people sympathize with this way of thinking, this mindset. I searched for information regarding stalking, and I kind of ran into a concept which is called group stalking. And I was reading what group stalking is, and it just fit. It exactly fit that description. Noticeable about this form of stalking is the fact that there's a large group of people who you just don't know. You don't know them. Just unknown people, you don't know them, and they're stalking you, they're following you, who participate in the stalking. It is continuous, it is openly done to show you're being stalked, and that the stalkers, they have the power and they have control of you. That's what they want to, that's the message that they want to convey. And that they have that control by terrorizing and oppressing you. Later on, you will you will hear how stalking is used to not only monitor your whereabouts, but also to ensure that they can, for example, enter your home, because then they know where you are and that you're not anywhere close. So, they can enter your home. They entered mine without being detected, without being seen. Questions which arise regarding the stalking are what justifies these events. We have a constitutional state in the Netherlands, which consists of rules of law to deal with and perform investigations into those who are suspected of a crime, right? In such a way that they aren't treated as a criminal without actually being convicted by a court. Now, in our case, Tom, Dick, and Harry, everyone can raise a notification which could lead to national and international prosecution and oppression of individuals. What about the rule of law which state that somebody is innocent until proven guilty? Until proven guilty. What about that rule of law? And can somebody tell me in which rule of law can I find that any civilian can partake in prosecuting and pursuing individuals on a national and international level? Where, in which rule of law is that written? Can anyone tell me that? Confrontations, the third one. Confrontations and more confrontations. This is about what's going on. As if stalking isn't enough, all kinds of confrontational situations are intentionally created. I am referring to situations in which, for instance, people have to cross your path, come into your face, or while I'm walking with my dogs strapped to their leash, they intentionally send their dogs out without their leash, rushing towards us, intentionally towards us, as if to create some sort of confrontational situation. This is another form of oppression. One of my dogs was injured twice on our own premises. He was first cut in one of his front paws while standing in the yard while the perpetrator stood by the fence. Unfortunately, I didn't see it happen. It was only after he returned back into the house and he started to lick his paw with a wound which was starting to bleed. I realized, hey, the dog was wounded. How did that happen? This is nothing less than animal cruelty. Animal cruelty. People are being encouraged to mistreat animals as part of some process of some system of oppression. Next to these events, there are two direct neighbors who interfere with my dogs. One of the two even goes so far as to call one of the dogs and feed the dog, even when I'm not around. And even after having caught him in the act and telling him not to do that. I walk my dogs twice a day. It's virtually impossible to have a nice, relaxed walk outside in which we enjoy the nature or some peace. Almost each and every time I go out, there has to be either stalking or some kind of confrontation. It seems it's geared to denying someone peace, continuously raising stress levels and creating frustration and so on and so on. So my question here is what is why what is this necessary? Why is it necessary? What purpose does it serve? Moving on to the next, trespassing. I was telling you that people were coming into the house. It started with noticing that people were coming into the yard without our permission. Nearly every time, and nearly everything in our yard has been damaged in some way. Even our fence, which is just made of ironworks, iron mat, has been pulled so many times, climbed down. It's deformed and it doesn't stick to the pole anymore because of the weight it had to carry while it's not meant for that. As if that isn't enough, we found out that people are also entering our home. An external storage area with a key. We found many damages to the house and facilities which were not made by us or the dogs. And it goes even further. There are even adjustments being made to configuration settings of facilities in the house. For instance, there's a ventilation system. It's being maintained by a company called Energiewacht. Around the time they were doing their maintenance rounds, I found out one day that the settings were altered to the point that the system operates at a much lower speed. Probably someone was annoyed at some aspect of the ventilation system and decided to enter our house and just adjust the setting because we were using the ventilation system on a daily basis. It was warm and we ventilated the house in the evening. This is truly unbelievable. The audacity that people would even think of that and then you would do it. You come into someone's house and you adjust that setting. That's how sick it is. I believe in the beginning, the house was only entered in our absence. When me, my mother, and the dogs that we weren't home was when we went on our walks. However, I observed the dogs on the days we both left the house and observed that they seemed to be nervous or a bit uptight. This was in the when we would leave the dogs at home. That triggered me to monitor the house with cameras and audio capture devices. The intruders disabled the cameras and the storage cards. However, I managed to collect audio feed which they weren't aware of. That's how I heard how people came in our house, opened doors, walked up the stairs, and do whatever they felt like doing. It is from one of these illegal entries that I came home one day and saw a weird wound on my dog's head, just like someone had given him a chap on the head, perhaps with a blunt instrument, because he didn't have like a cut on the head but a deep dent with a little blood, indicating that the skin did breach somewhat. Even if it wasn't deep, who in their right mind thinks of this and thinks about entering somebody's home? The dogs are there, and then I'm just gonna chop him on the head, and then you actually do it. It is this is crazy. This stuff happens. And I'm talking about each and every moment we leave our house, every time, each and every moment. We informed the owner of the rental house of what was going on. It took them a week to react. When I finally received their reaction, they told me it's not possible that anyone can enter the house with a key. They didn't know that I had that. I didn't tell them about the audio feed. It's impossible that anyone can. That did not happen. And the damages which I mentioned, which I told them about, I had to pay for them. So I have to pay for them. I have to pay rent. And then other people can come into my house. They can attack my dogs in their house while the dogs can't freely run and hide and take care of themselves. They have to suffer everything that they are doing. And they can go anywhere in the house while we pay, and they can damage whatever they want, and then I have to pay for that. That's the justice that's being served here. That's justice. And I went to the police. I notified the police of this. Till today, not one police report was given me. Not one. So I can call them and I can tell them everything that happens, but I cannot get a police report issued. So that's justice. That I have to pay for that. Let me move on to the next. Computer intrusion on cell phones and laptops. I am afraid that the criminals also managed to put spyware apps, etc., on our mobile devices during the period we weren't quite aware that they were entering our home. Even hidden Wi-Fi networks are enabled, and they use those to connect on our devices and eavesdrop and do whatever and alter stuff and do whatever on the systems. Social media is also used to place undermining feeds and commercials. On the one hand, to manipulate your mindset and mood, also to attempt to read your mindset and your mood to further manipulate you. And on the other hand, I also see it is used to look, over your shoulder into your account even after resetting your password. We have noticed that each and every call is eavesdropped. Others are constantly monitoring everything we do on the net, not only the pages we visit, but also our internet banking or the usage of other apps. It is constantly being monitored. Mobile calls are terminated or otherwise disrupted, or worse, even calls don't even come in or go out. There are people trying to gain total control over all our devices and communications. Our freedom of speech is in grave danger. I have a WordPress site where I host a blog. Next to that, I mostly use Meta and LinkedIn. Posts on my website or Meta are sometimes blocked. There's nothing I can do online in private. Eh? Um, this this takeover of our devices, that's what I call the takeover, results in others controlling who and when we can communicate. It results in us not being able to communicate with others. And others are also not allowed to communicate with us. We are being cut off, so to speak. And then the role of ICT. ICT plays an important role in this whole oppression system. ICT plays such an important role. It is used to intensify oppression. It is easy to do because you can do it from a distance. People don't know who you are. Most people are maybe not even aware of that this it really has a role and that it's really used actively, intentionally. From blocking, rerouting, and disturbing calls and internet connections, blocking my router so that I can't work, then you can't work, you can't make your money, to making websites and information inaccessible. For instance, not being able to file your tax online, to blocking me from filing the tax, to allowing data to be manipulated and exchanged without your explicit consent, which in total increases the potential for fraud. If people have access to your data and could do whatever they want, there is a great potential for fraud. Blocking, undocking. The worst part for me is that I tried hard to get the situation clarified and solved, and I hardly get any response to that. I contacted many parties to address what's going on in an attempt to find a solution and answers within the political party I was a member of, by writing all party leaders in the second chamber, by contacting lawyers about what was going on, media, the College voor de Rechten van de Mens, the highest human rights organization within the Netherlands. However, until now, there is no one who claims responsibility or otherwise steps up to stop this from continuing. My mother is 77 years old. Yeah? And this is seriously damaging her. Let me make that clear. We try to move, we are blocked. They want us to remain in this situation. When you yourself, you create misery for others and you try to shove that off to people who have lived their lives, who have faced their battles, who have dealt with their issues, they solved their issues, then in my opinion, you are inhuman. You lack compassion. You lack the essence of humanity. You are not human. I don't know what you are, but you are not human. In short, me and my housemates, we live in a continuous state of fear and heightened alert. This horrible, unjust way of dealing with people has had an immense impact on my entire family and it still does. Worst of all is that this is all just, it's all possible despite the laws and the rights which are being violated. It's all possible. It's all possible. I feel discriminated. Who can tell me that their families are being prosecuted in the same way that we are? Who can tell me that? Right? These activities should not be normalized. They should never be normalized. If we continue to accept this as the new normal, it has the potential to destroy our society and each and every society it interacts with. Please be aware of what you are allowing to be normalized. Oppression 2022, it's here. You need to decide on whether you want it to stay here. Then at least with this story, you know what's coming for you, your kids, for everyone. I hope I've given you enough insights into what's going on here. Denise out.